Undercover owner saw Waitress with a broken hand in his diner. Denise Carter balanced trays, with one arm wrapped in bandages, pushing through the pain while her manager, Ross, tore into her for every tiny mistake. Customers whispered, some pitying, others shaking their heads at his cruelty. What no one knew was that her injury was an accident, and Ross was hiding something far darker. Watching from the corner booth, Harold, the undercover owner, realized things didn't add up. The deeper he dug, the more disturbing the truth became. Before we go any further, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end, and if the story moves you, drop your thoughts in the comments and share it with a friend. Now let's begin. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and fried bacon that never quite left the air. Morning rush hour meant the counter buzzed with chatter, the hiss of the grill, and the shuffle of plates stacked high. In the middle of it all was Denise Carter. She was hard to miss, not because she made a scene, but because she worked like three people rolled into one. Her hair tied back, apron already stained, she carried steaming mugs in her good hand while balancing plates against her hip. The other hand, her left, was wrapped in bandages that stretched to her wrist. Anyone watching closely could see the stiffness in her movements, the quick flinch whenever her fingers brushed something by mistake. But Denise smiled anyway. That was her shield. Behind the counter, the manager, Ross, leaned against the register, smirking as he barked orders. Pick it up, Denise. Don't keep people waiting. You think this is a charity. His voice cut through the diner like a knife, loud enough for customers to hear. A few looked up, shaking their heads, whispering. At table 3, 2 women in business suits leaned closer, their voices low. Poor thing, look at her hand. She shouldn't even be working. Yeah, but Ross, he never lets up. Always on her case. I don't know how she takes it. Denise heard them. She heard everything. The laughter, the pity, the digs Ross made every time she moved slower than usual. And yet, she kept going. Because for her, quitting wasn't an option. Rent didn't wait. Bills didn't care. By mid-morning, sweat had gathered at the back of her neck. Her good arm ached from carrying too much weight alone. She sat down an order at table 6, whispered a soft "enjoy your meal," and turned, only to bump into Ross himself. The collision sent a glass of water spilling across his shirt. The diner went silent. Ross leaned in so close she could smell the sour coffee on his breath. Clumsy again? You're just looking for excuses, aren't you? A few customers shifted uncomfortably. Someone muttered, "Man, give her a break." But Ross ignored them, his eyes locked on Denise like a predator enjoying the hunt. She mumbled an apology, reached for a towel with her good hand, but he snatched it away. His lips curled into a grin only she could see, the kind that told her this wasn't about the spill. It was about control. And the worst part, she knew why. Weeks earlier, she had overheard Ross bragging about skimming money from the register. She hadn't meant to listen. She was just cleaning tables after closing when his voice carried through the thin office door. At first, she thought she heard wrong, but when she pressed her ear closer, every word confirmed it. Ross was stealing, and when he caught her outside that night, frozen in the hallway, she remembered the flash of anger in his eyes, the way his hand shot out and twisted her wrist until something cracked. The pain had dropped her to her knees, but Ross only sneered. Clumsy, huh? Better keep it that way. One word about what you heard, and you won't just lose your job. Now, with her hand bound and useless, she was the one being marked as incompetent. By the end of her shift, Denise's body was trembling from exhaustion. She leaned against the back counter, whispering a quiet prayer that no one heard. She didn't know it yet, but someone had been watching her every move. Someone she thought was just another customer grabbing a cheap meal. And that quiet gaze was about to change everything. Most customers came and went without much thought, eating their pancakes, tipping if they felt generous, and rushing back into the world. But one man never seemed to rush. He was older, maybe late 60s, with white hair trimmed neat and boots that had seen more road than city sidewalks. Folks called him the vet because of the way he carried himself, straight-backed even when sitting, eyes sharp even when silent. Most thought he was just another retiree passing the time over a plate of eggs. Nobody knew that Harold Whitman was the actual owner of the diner. For years, Harold had kept his identity hidden, preferring to blend in with the regular crowd. He believed you saw the truth when people thought no one important was looking. That morning, Harold stirred his coffee slowly, his gaze fixed on Denise. He'd been watching her for weeks now, always working harder than the others, always the one Ross targeted. But today, with her hand bound in thick bandages, it was different. Every tray she carried looked like it might slip at any second. Every smile seemed carved out of pain. At the next booth, two young men whispered loud enough for Harold to catch. "Man, that manager's got it out for her." "Yeah, I've seen the others slack off plenty, but he never says a word to them. Just her." Harold's jaw tightened. He had run businesses long enough to recognize bias when he saw it, and cruelty. Ross strutted past Harold's table then, laughing at something on his phone. When Denise asked for help carrying a heavy stack of dishes, Ross didn't even glance at her. Instead, he muttered, "Use both hands." "Oh wait, you can't." His chuckle cut through the diner like nails on glass. Harold didn't move. He didn't react. But inside, his blood simmered. Later, while Denise wiped down a counter, Harold caught the faintest wince in her eyes when she bent her wrist too far. He also noticed the way she avoided Ross, like a person who'd already learned that getting too close meant danger. Something wasn't adding up. When the lunch crowd thinned, Harold quietly asked for the manager. Ross came swaggering over, assuming it was just another customer complaint. "Food not hot enough. Coffee too bitter," he smirked. Harold shook his head, just wondering about that waitress. "She's injured. Why is she working the floor?" Ross's grin faltered for a split second. Then it returned. She's clumsy. Always messing up. Half the reports in this place are on her. But she begged to stay on the shift, so I let her. You know, I'm generous like that." Harold nodded slowly, though inside, every word from Ross's mouth tasted like a lie. Generous? No. He'd seen the way Ross sneered, the way the customers whispered, the way Denise pushed through pain just to keep her dignity. That night, Harold sat alone at the corner booth long after most had gone. His coffee had gone cold, untouched. He stared at Denise cleaning tables with her good hand, still smiling faintly at strangers, even though her eyes looked heavy with fatigue. The old veteran narrowed his eyes. If Ross claimed Denise was the problem, then Harold was going to find out for himself. And if what he suspected was true, someone in this diner was about to regret underestimating both her and him. The next day, Harold returned to the diner. Same corner booth, same black coffee. To everyone else, he looked like the same old veteran with nowhere better to be. But his eyes weren't on the menu. They were on Ross. Ross strutted from table to table, cracking jokes with customers, laughing louder than anyone else. But the moment Denise walked by, his face hardened. Every move she made, he pounced. If she poured coffee too slowly, he snapped his fingers. If she wiped the counter twice instead of once, he smirked and muttered about wasting time. Harold noticed a pattern. It wasn't just criticism, it was targeted. And when Denise dropped a single fork, Ross shook his head dramatically, telling a nearby table, "See what I deal with." Always careless. Customers chuckled nervously, not sure if he was serious. Denise bent down, her good hand trembling, cheeks burning. By now, Harold's suspicion had turned into certainty. Ross was setting her up. That afternoon, Harold slipped into the back office under the pretense of looking for the restroom. The door was unlocked, papers scattered across the desk. His eyes landed on a stack of misconduct forms. Page after page had Denise's name scrawled across the top, each one accusing her of petty things: spilled drinks, forgotten orders, bad attitude. But Harold had eaten there for months. He'd never once seen Denise act out of line. He flipped further and found something worse: cash register tallies that didn't add up. Every week, the numbers dipped, but no reports had been filed. His stomach sank. He knew what theft looked like. He'd caught men in his old businesses before. Ross wasn't just cruel, he was dirty. That night, Harold stayed longer than usual, sipping his coffee while the diner emptied. As the last customers left, Ross retreated to the office. The door didn't close all the way, and voices drifted out. "Another $5,000 easy," Ross bragged, laughter spilling into the hallway. And when they noticed the cash missing, "That little waitress takes the fall. She's already got the most write-ups. Nobody's gonna believe her over me." A second voice, one of Ross's drinking buddies, snorted, "You're playing with fire, man. What if she talks?" Ross's voice dropped colder. "She won't. Not with that hand. Broke it good enough to remind her who's in charge." Harold froze in the shadows, fists curling tight. The air in his chest turned heavy, each breath slower, harder. This wasn't just theft, it was abuse. Racial, physical, deliberate. He thought of Denise smiling through the pain, carrying on like nothing had happened, and something inside him twisted. The conversation inside ended with drunken laughter. Harold slipped out the side door into the night, the cool air cutting across his face. For the first time in years, his military instincts stirred. He'd seen injustice in the world, but to find it rotting in his own business, he wouldn't let it stand. The truth was out, and tomorrow the mask would come off. The morning rush returned like clockwork, coffee pots hissing, forks clinking, voices rising and falling across the diner. Denise moved between tables, her wrapped hand stiff against her apron. To most, she looked like just another tired worker pushing through the pain. To Harold, she looked like someone carrying a weight far heavier than dishes. But today wasn't going to be just another day. Harold entered quietly, same boots, same denim jacket, but this time, his shoulders squared differently. He wasn't here as a customer. He was here as the owner. Ross was by the counter, laughing too loudly, joking with two waitresses who rolled their eyes when his back turned. The second he saw Harold, his grin faltered. "You again? Back for the eggs?" Harold didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the middle of the diner and tapped his spoon gently against his coffee cup. The soft metallic ring drew curious looks from every booth. Conversations quieted, forks paused. Denise froze mid-step, her eyes darting toward him. "Morning, everyone," Harold began, his voice calm but firm. "I think it's time you all know who I really am." Ross chuckled nervously. "What? You writing a book or something?" Harold's gaze locked on him. "No, I own this diner." The room went dead silent. A fork clattered onto a plate. Denise's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. For years, nobody knew the old man at the corner booth was the one signing their paychecks. Ross barked out a laugh, though his face had drained pale. You're joking." Harold pulled a folder from under his jacket and placed it on the counter. Pages spilled out, misconduct reports, financial sheets, photocopied register logs. "I've watched long enough. I know what you've been doing, Ross. Every false report you filed against Denise. Every dollar you skimmed from the register. And I know what you did to her hand." Gasps rippled through the diner. Customers turned in their seats. The two women from the business table whispered, I knew it. I knew he was dirty." Ross stammered, his voice cracking. This is ridiculous. You can't prove." Before he could finish, two uniformed officers walked through the door. Harold had called them that morning. Their presence alone silenced the room. Ross's bravado shattered. "Wait, you can't, this isn't." But the cuffs snapped around his wrists before he could finish. The diner erupted in murmurs as Ross was let out, his protests drowned beneath the clink of chains. Denise stood frozen, her good hand pressed against her chest. For once, Ross wasn't looming over her. For once, the weight of blame had shifted. Harold turned to her, his voice softer now. You've carried this place on your back. While others lied about you, you kept it running. From today forward, you're not just a waitress. You're the new floor supervisor. Denise blinked, tears pooling in her eyes. The bandage on her hand trembled as she pressed it against her lips, a muffled sob escaping. Around her, customers clapped, some quietly, some loud enough to echo. And for the first time in years, Denise straightened her shoulders, not as the woman people pitied, but as someone finally seen for who she truly was. Outside, Ross's shouts faded as the police car pulled away. Inside, the diner smelled the same, burnt coffee and grease, but the air felt different. Lighter, cleaner. Harold sat back at his usual booth, coffee in hand. But this time, he wasn't just watching. He was smiling, because justice had finally been served. Never underestimate the quiet strength of those who keep showing up, even when the world tries to break them. Denise's story proves that truth always wins, and justice always finds the guilty. If you believe stories like this should be told, hit that subscribe button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below, because your voice matters too.